level. And what they did, instead of looking at the average income, the average consumption of families, they looked at what happens to the children after the couple breaks up. And they've compared their lifestyle to two standards. One's the average middle income standard of living in Arizona. So they kind of looked and said, when mom breaks up with dad and her and the kids live over here and they get the old child support, their standard of living's gone way down. Dad's has gone barely down. And in those cases, we wanted to make it more fair. And that's the big change. But it is a big change. And we are going to be taking more money from the rich, so to speak, and giving it to the poor. And of course, that's going to raise some rumblings.
Got to watch the time on this one. I've ended when we're doing this, but this is fairly fascinating in doing that stuff, and it's such a critical factor for children and the parents in doing that stuff. I think you talked a little bit about the income shared model, and the model that we're using now is called.
It is called Child Outcome-Based Support.
That's what we're having.
That's going to be under the new guidelines.
And the old ones we're using
was called the Income Shared Model.
Okay, so we're doing this. We're switching on that one.
And it's not a total shift. We still look at both of their incomes, but we don't just base it on that.
Is it ultimately? Do you know they're going to do the website again? I think the child support can be calculated on the web.
Yes, there definitely will be what we call a Cobb's calculator, and we also have to do tables for those calculators, and those tables are going to be quite extensive. So it will be a little bit more complicated to figure out child support in some ways, but there will be help on the internet if passed.
I think some of us who are doing this professionally use the program Cassandra for calculating that. So Cassandra is going to have to be totally revised as well, I take
They
it.
probably would. That's a private-based software, and there's a judge in Phoenix developed a good child support software. So there will be several, I believe. But the Supreme Court, I think, will ensure that most people can go on for free and play with the calculator without having to buy a piece of software.
Under the current child support guidelines, I think the health insurance makes a difference, child care, and some of these other the visitation parenting factors. That's all going to be still.
Yes, the same basic approach to each of them paying their share of the daycare, each of them paying their share of the insurance, that will still be in effect.
That's good. We're talking a little bit about how it's calculated, but a little bit of how it's paid. You mentioned the clearinghouse earlier. Can you tell us a little bit about how child support is paid?
Yes. Again, according to the Social Security Act, one of the impositions they put on the state is that all states have collections through a general clearinghouse. And so it's called in Arizona the support clearinghouse, the support payment clearinghouse. And as soon as a child support order is established, they set up a record-keeping device, which can be pretty handy, and so every payment that comes in is put on their records, and so 10 years from now you can request a printout and you can know exactly what you've paid. It occasionally has made mistakes. I have a case where $5,000 got sent out to the wrong parent and we're trying to get it back, but by and large it works pretty well. All cases require wage assignments also. So as soon as the child support order is issued, a wage assignment is issued, and the dad's income goes out of his wages, so he never sees it. It gets sent to the clearinghouse. They note that it's been paid, and then it gets sent to mom. But actually, now it gets sent to mom electronically. They require her to set it up so that she can get that money electronically.
What's the time? If the husband has to pay child support on a Friday, under the clearinghouse? When does the money? And he makes the payment on time.
I believe that they state that they turn around most payments within 2 business days, and I'm not quite sure. But if it's a payment that comes in electronically or by check and mom is set up electronically, she should get that payment within a couple of days.
And what happens if the couple doesn't want to do that? The husband really just wants to be old-fashioned and give her a check or have it taken out of his checking account. Can you do that?
You really can't. It's absolutely mandatory because of federal law that it be by wage assignment. There really is not a way to do that.
We talked a little bit about the other thing is some of the other factors, but does physical and legal custody enter into this at all?
Legal custody does not. That's really all about decision making, and theoretically you could be in jail and still have joint legal custody as long as you can make joint decisions with your ex-spouse. But physical custody makes a big difference. If you have 50-50 custody, your support is generally going to be less than if you are just the visiting parent. So some people claim that makes dads fight for 50-50 custody so they pay less child support. I've certainly seen that happen. But I also know sometimes dads are very concerned about having 50-50 custody. It's not just about the money.
Do they actually look at the number of days like they do in the current situation, or do they, if they say joint physical custody, they presume that it's going to be 50-50?
They do look at the number of days, and we've tweaked with the language a little bit. One of the tweaks is they say that school days should not be included. I'm not real happy with that language because I think parents are going to start subtracting school days from dad's time. And again, I don't want every child support case to end up having to be a half-day hearing. They should be relatively easy to figure out, in my opinion.
We have about 2 minutes to go, but it always goes so fast, I'm always surprised. But we've been talking a lot about divorce cases, but this also enters into paternity cases as well. How does that work?
Absolutely. Very quickly on paternity, dads, if you think you have a child, get your paternity established. The state or mom can go back 3 years, so just because she's not collecting child support doesn't mean she can. But yes, these guidelines apply in paternity cases, and if you are the dad, you have a right to a blood test, but if the blood test proves that you're the dad, you have to pay child support, and putting it off doesn't help because lots of guys end up owing $20,000 or $30,000 because they've waited, and it runs at 10% interest, and that's not a good way to start out.
Occasionally we have people who have multiple children from different relationships, and how does that work in prioritizing child support in the divorce cases? If you divorce twice and you have children from two marriages, or you have a paternity and you have two marriages, how does who's first?
Quickly, the court does not discriminate. So theoretically, all those children are treated equally. You get to take off a certain amount of income for each child you have. And I think sometimes the judge will actually have those 2 or 3 cases in there together so they can hear all 3 child support cases at the same time and figure out the exact amount that each parent will get for the children.
We're almost done. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No, just that stay educated about it. Look up on the internet. There's lots of good information by the Supreme Court. Arizona has lots of good information on the internet. And if you don't like or like a lot these new guidelines, let your legislatures know. Contact the committee. We are still having meetings, and we just want the public involved.
And if you want more information, there's the information at the bottom of our screen. And I also want to show there's Bob's information, his website, and his telephone number, so you can reach him if you need to. If you have any questions about what we've talked about today, you can do that way. Bob, I want to thank you very much. It's really been enlightening. A lot of facts, a lot of things that can go happen here. And child support really is a very critical issue, and especially in this day of finances and all the other problems. I want to thank you to take the time today to come out and talk to us, and it's been very useful and helpful to all of us.
My pleasure.
And you've been watching Divorce TV with Wally Marcus, and thank you for watching.